It's a beautiful morning in the mountains of southern Appalachia. Back in the 50s today. I think it was 57 when I first got up, but I think it's going to warm up pretty fast. And by the end of the week, we're forecasted to be in the 90s. So this may be our last morning of 50-degree weather. I'm going to take you on a tour of the garden and show you how things are doing. It's kind of going to be a tour for myself because we've spent so little time in it this year because of all of our dealings and taking care of and watching over Miss Cindy. So I'm sure that I'm gonna see some things that surprises me. We've not got to be in it much since she passed away because of course we had to worry about all the things that go along with somebody passing away, and then we had another friend who died. We had that funeral and just the general busyness of trying to get everything in order. So I'm kind of excited to see the garden too. Just in my little general peek that I've been doing as I've went back and forth to the chickens or whatever, I have seen some things that are really doing great and I'm excited about, but I've also seen some things that are really not doing good. Mostly that one thing is our tomatoes on the other side of the house. There's actually some of them that are dead and we're just going to have to pull them up, but hopefully we can take some of the suckers from these back here that are doing so good and replace those plants. And I don't know what happened to them. They kind of look like they maybe have the blight. I don't know. We usually don't deal with that, but something has definitely took a few of them out, and I've not even got up close enough to them to look. I don't think it's bug damage as much because it's the whole plant. It's not just like how hornworms and things like that'll do, but we'll see. We'll look at it up close. But I'm going to start with the new beds on the bank. I'm going to take you I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and come back this way, and let's look in them and see how they're doing. And you can see behind me, a lot of you who've been following us for a long time will remember what our bank looked like before we had it cut back and then afterwards when it was really bare. And a lot of people, we were glad you're always concerned about us. We're worried about it being bare and washing off. Well, as you can see what we were saying now, all that stuff was still there. It was just cut back. And so as the summer progresses, it will continue to grow, and by the end of the summer you'll really be amazed at how much has grown back. And it's just a job we have to do over and over and over ever since we've lived here. But thankfully this time we didn't have to do it. Thomas and his wonderful group of employees, his men, they're all friends. Feels like silly kind of to call them employees because they're all friends of ours. They did it for us this time. So this is the first bed all the way towards the wood pile. It's right in the sea of red clay, as you can see. And this is the one that over the weekend we did plant some of the herbs that medicinal plants that Corey and I had purchased. So they all look like they're doing good. I've not even watered them, but we've had rain, so they're doing good. Now, a lot of people did give us great information about them, like the self-heal, that will kind of take over, so we'll have to watch that. Of course, the stinging nettle, if it does good, we know that you have to be careful around it. And a lot of people said that it would take over, but so far, that like last year we did have live plants and they didn't take over, they died. So we'll just kind of keep a close eye on them and see what happens. And then the valerian, I know from myself that it may take over the whole bed too. But everything we planted is looking really good, and we may have to adjust and move some of them to other places, but at least here we can keep track of them and make sure they're doing okay. And this great tomato plant that's just a volunteer, it's got blooms on it, so we'll just have to wait and see what it is. It's come, I'm sure, from the compost that we put inside the bed when we first filled it up. So in this next bed, you can see it's really still bare. Got some weeds over there in the corner that needs to be pulled out. Our onions are growing big and huge, and then that one marigold, and that's all that's in this one. Well, there's one little piece of purslane. I'm sure that come from the compost too, and then the weeds that needs to be pulled out. Pretty much the same for this one. A couple of marigolds, some weeds, some grass, and then the onions. But the onions in this one are not looking as good as the other ones. And they had some damage with some, like a caterpillar that was on them. And I sprayed some neem oil on it, and the caterpillars are gone. But I guess they kind of stunted the growth of the onions. But they'll probably come back, I hope. And while the first two beds kind of look puny, well, the one with the herbs in it don't, but the next two is the ones that kind of look puny. From here on out, these beds are doing amazing. So you can see all the onions in this. Some of the ones are red onions from Satterfield. Some of them are from Debbie at Bryson Farm Supply. And then the marigolds, and they're all just doing, it just looks wonderful. It's just beautiful, beautiful to my eyes. Now this raised bed looks amazing. It is just so wonderful. Have you ever seen such a stand of cucumbers? I'm so excited about them. This is a bush type of cucumber. That's why we planted them in here. And although I don't see any blooms yet, you can see there's blooms everywhere just about to burst out. That down in there, that bloom, that's a marigold. And there's some marigolds in the other end. And then some onions that are being overtook by the cucumbers. I did plant some lettuce in that other end. That's why it's kind of bare, but it never come up. It never come up. Well, I see some little bitty places now. I see something green. Maybe I should go over there and look. Okay, that may be lettuce. Oh my goodness, if it is, it's the lettuce that took the longest ever to come up. But I guess that's what that is because it's everywhere. So maybe a weed though. I may be getting excited about the lettuce and it may turn out it's a weed. Still, the cucumbers are just amazing. I can't wait to eat them and to make pickles. This one's doing good too, you can see. Wonderful, full, beautiful. In these two grow bags, I planted some watermelons, and they look the best of any watermelons that I planted, even though I planted them later. I don't know if they just like the soil in this better, I don't know if it's because they're up off the ground, but they look really good. This one's about to start running. It ain't running yet. But some of the ones I planted really early, like the big day of planting that we did, they're not even this big yet. So my watermelons never do really good, but it doesn't look like this year they're going to do good at all. But over here, this looks amazing. So this is some peas, some Mississippi pink eye peas in this bed, and then also the onions out through there and some marigolds on each end, but they look great. And me and Matt are just crazy about them. We can't wait to start eating these. Watermelon in this bag on this other end of the bed is not as good, doesn't look as good as that first one, but still, those look better than the ones I've planted in the yard, so I'll take it. Now you talk about something that needs weeding, it's our blackberries. We've just totally let them get away from us, and we're just going to have to get on it. Now, I just picked blackberries yesterday, made a delicious pie, but I see some ripe ones just hanging there. You can see some of the ripe ones. And I just picked them yesterday, but that's how blackberries do. They turn really quickly once they start getting ripe. I'm probably most excited about these last two beds out through here because this is where we're growing some of those old-timey seeds that we got from Debbie at Bryson Farm Supply, some of the old-time butter beans, peas, and then also some old-time butter beans that a wonderful subscriber sent me that I just can't wait. They were just beautiful, beautiful. And he said they would grow all the way till fall of the year, so I sure hope they do. They're doing good. They're the first ones here closest to me, closest to the video there. So I'm so excited about them. All the way over there on the end, there's the Holstein pea that was from Debbie, and I'm really excited about that one too. This is some tomatoes that we planted, and I can't remember what they were because we didn't mark them, but I'm pretty positive. You can see a little one right there if I can get it out. They're like a pear-shaped yellow tomato, and those were from the Satterfields. There's also some of the wonderful ones from Carolyn and David, my favorite. That can be my morning breakfast. I've not ate breakfast yet. So good. And I should not have, just like I knew, I should not have planted the tomatoes there, but I did it. They look wonderful. They're doing good. Need to be trimmed back some probably, but that's where they're at. This was our volunteer potato. You can see it's beginning to die back, so it's probably ready pretty soon at least. It'll be ready to harvest, see if there's any down there. And that was a potato peel that was probably in the compost that we used to fill this up. Is where that come from. Over in the end here we have there's some peppers. Those probably need to be picked. And then also the peas back there that are getting pretty tall. Look at that one. That's the Holstein ones I'm so excited about. Right here in front's where Katie put some of her wildflower mix. I don't know that all of it lived, but there's at least 2 little flowers. And a little bit more over through there. I see a little hosta too. It's ended up there somehow. So a lot of folks have asked about the flower project that I started back early in the spring when this was really bare and there was nothing on it. I was putting irises that we had dug up and some hostas and some different things, and then I had to stop that to take care of Miss Cindy. There just wasn't time. But this is one of the ones that I did cover. Now, you can see there's a lot of weeds here growing, but there's also a lot of the flowers are living. Right here's some of the irises and you can see them all the way down through there that lived. There's a really pretty plant that a subscriber shared with me, sent me some in the mail, and it's got the first little bloom. And when she described it to me, I wondered if it was this beautiful bloom that I'd seen over on Hazel Creek years ago when I went for a cemetery decoration over there. And it is. It's the same plant. So I'm so excited that she shared them with me. Another one I noticed that's living here is some of the yarrow. That's right there that we planted. That had come back up from when we lost our herb bed, and I just popped it up here on the bank. And I think there's some oregano in here somewhere. And then of course you can see some hostas. So this first cattle panel has got our greasy beans. We didn't plant near as many of them last year, and they're just beginning to reach the trellis and start climbing up. You hear some noise. Katie's working on her own little garden feature over here, and she'll be doing a video about it, so you can check that out in the coming days. And then on this end of the cattle panel is 2 grapevines that we planted. I know they were here last year. Maybe the year before, but just last year I think. And they have really took off this year, really just went crazy. And I'm terrible that I can't remember the names of either one of them. I got them from the local 4-H club. Every year they have like a plant sale, and I got it through them, and these are doing great. I do have the papers somewhere that tell me what kind they are, but they're doing really good. And these beans are, now that they've begun to climb, I know they're going to be pretty quick. They're going to be as nice as the ones in the front. And Katie and I both have been so excited about this flower bed. This is the one that we took all the irises out of. Matt and I did, and we were going to plant them on the bank. And as you can see, there's still plenty. So maybe we can continue that process of removing the iris and the hostas from this bed, so we'll have more room for flowers next year. And then the Japanese anemone, September charm, it's just like exploded. And it's so strange because I've had that flower for probably at least 10 years, maybe even closer to 15 years. And it's never really done much. And this year, it's just, last year and this year, it's just kind of went crazy in this bed and in the one up front. But you can see some of the beautiful flowers back there, some pink yarrow, the lamb's ears that are so beautiful. This cosmo's just now beginning to bloom. Got some more of the yarrow there. There's a little pink bloom. There was some zinnias in there. I guess they've got overtook now. And then Katie's poppies. They've about finished blooming, but they're still pretty, even with their little thing on top there. And then Katie planted this beautiful nasturtium this year, this pink color. I've never had a pink one like that. It is so pretty. So I hope that we can save some seeds from it and continue to grow it. I bet it's already produced seeds if I look down in there. There's a little granddaddy. Hello. Can you tell me where the cows are at? That's one of the things you're supposed to ask a granddaddy, and they point with their legs and tell you where the cows are at. Folks used to use that. Kids did when they were trying to get the cows to come home. Of course, I don't have no cows to worry about, but there are cows close by, so they could tell me about them. And then these cosmos, just lovely. They've been so pretty. They were supposed to be a miniature variety, but as you can see, they're almost, and go up a little bit there, now you can see they're almost as tall as I am. So, but they were beautiful, beautiful. This was a miniature sunflower, so that's going to be pretty. I planted it after little Quincy convinced me to buy the one from them that was so pretty. I thought, well, I should have some seeds for those and try to plant them myself. More of Katie's beautiful pink nasturtiums. And then on down the house is nasturtiums, some dianthus that Katie planted, and then my hostas, my little miniature hostas that I just love. Here comes Katie with another load of rocks. Maybe we can get her to give us a little tease about what she's doing. And see, this is what she's working on. She's got her some cardboard. She's lining it with rocks. Of course, she's going to fill it with dirt, and it's going to be great.
It is going to be great.
Yeah.
I want to grow some fall flowers in here because it's like after spring and summer, everything dies and it's kind of sad. And you're like, man, I really miss the flowers. So I thought I should find some stuff like asters and mums and different stuff that'll bloom in the fall. Dedicate this bed to it. Maybe put a few pots around it or in the back. And then hopefully next year, I'll plant my poppies in the fall, this fall. They'll bloom next spring and then everything will kind of be contained. Because it seems like the problem with poppies is you don't sow them very deep, so then by the time you've got them planted, sometimes they're
kind of disturbed. This time it was probably us because we added mulch, we added compost, we've dug up, we done this. So Katie's going to keep hers under control.
Right, so the seeds don't blow or move. And then I thought maybe there'll probably be some room. We could also do like some onions or something like that.
Yeah,
so
that'd be great.
Pretty
Be
cool.
wonderful.
So I'm excited. Pretty good.
You can see the herb bed that Katie helped me plant's doing fantastic. Her onion forest back there is doing great. We've cut back some of the stuff to try to encourage it to bush out, and that seems to be working. We've got some blooms though. The hyssop, I just love it. I love the smell. I love the blooms. I'm excited about it. Another thing folks told us the other day when Matt and I was planting was that this St. John's wort would get to be a really big bush. So that's not going to be a good place to leave it. But for now, I think it'll be okay. And then maybe I can figure out where to put it. The clary sage, the same thing, that it would probably get really, really big. I finally got my lemon balm back growing, so I was excited about that. I just love this bed, though. I think we tried to think about so many different ways, and of course we kept the metal off the roof, and Matt wanted to build beds out of it, but we was kind of up against the time frame of needing to plant, and then Miss Cindy being sick, and we just decided to do this. But I think it turned out really nice, so I'm pleased with it. There's some bees visiting the blooms. That's a good sign. People told me that bees would love the hyssop. Can you believe our tomatoes? Can you believe this? It's just crazy. Just reaching 8 foot tall and just keep going. This is our tomato bed, and they are just going crazy. They're loaded with tomatoes, mostly the ones that are ripe that we've been enjoying so far. That's the only tomatoes we've had that's ripe that we've been enjoying, are the little orange ones from David and Carolyn. They are so, so good. And I just can't believe, though, how lush this is and how wonderful, especially when I look at the ones down below that are just looking really pitiful. This bed is really good soil, though, because we've amended it so many times over the years. And we have that one, but as far as the big, large garden down there, this end is the worst. So maybe that's it, or maybe something's happened to those tomatoes. We'll have to get down there and see. But I'm thrilled with these. And I know that we've already all been enjoying those little orange ones, and we're going to enjoy all the rest when they get ripe too. So in these two beds behind me, you can see they're beginning to get lush and full too. Now, I've made the mistake of planting way too many marigolds. I just got so excited. So I hope later today, maybe even later today, I'm going to move some of them and give them some air. And our cucumbers and melons are starting to climb up the trellis. I'm so excited about that. I can't wait for that first cucumber. We've got some little tomatoes there that have got ripe, or got ones all over them. They're not ripe yet though. But the only thing here that's not doing good is our peppers. I knew they looked like they were kind of stunted, which we have had unusually cool weather, you know. But then when I was over at Corey's on Sunday, I was amazed at how big her peppers are. And I was like, yeah, mine's really, really stunted. Now, Corey does have more sunshine than I do, and she's not on the north side like I am. So maybe that's different. Maybe it's because she's planted them in a big raised bed. But hers are just so huge and so big. And ours literally have not grown very much since we planted them. So I don't know, this is not going to be a good year probably for peppers, but Matt may be right that I've got them so choked out that they can't get any sunshine. So I'm gonna work on that. That's one of the many things on my list that I need to work on and catch up on. I had such high hopes for this part of the garden. This was the second year, this is our new ground from last year that we made this bed here, and I wanted it so bad to be just this jungle of winter squash. Well, a bird or a squirrel or something dug up all my seeds and ate them, and I've not got them planted back. I do have one or two squash right here in the very front that made it, but the rest all gone. Another thing we did back here last weekend was we put our mullein plants back here, and they look like they're doing good. And a lot of people told me that they may take over, so I'll have to keep an eye on them as well. And then some of the tomatoes that seems like eons ago that I pulled out of that bed, I planted them back here. I just literally laid them on the ground and put a rock on them, and they're growing, so they'll be back here. But today, I hope later in the day when I hope to do some of the weeding stuff, I hope I can at least come back here and plant a few more winter squash, and maybe the squirrel or the bird or whatever it was will leave them alone this time. The nasturtiums on this end are doing the same thing, kind of pillowing out. I'm still in love with the flowers outside the door of the greenhouse, and the nasturtiums are really in the little pot now, are really starting to bloom, and I just love them. They're just one of my favorite plants. I love the bloom. I love the leaf, though. The leaf is just so pretty, and of course it's all edible, so you can eat it. Back there in the back is some calendula. It's supposed to be pink calendula, so I can't wait for that to grow and see what that blooms like. I was talking about the seeds on the pink nasturtium, and I didn't see any of them, but I do see some already right here. So this is what the seeds look like. I can get a hold of it and pull it up on nasturtiums. And then you just pull those loose. You can just pull them loose and kind of break them apart, and then lay them out to dry. And then they'll shrivel up and get brown, and then next year, you can plant them. Another thing I found out is they are edible too. And some people think that's where the most, as far as medicinal qualities, that's where the majority of the strength is. So you can do your own research about that. But definitely you can save them and you can do like me and have a nasturtium forest around your house, have them everywhere. I just love them. I love their peppery scent and taste. And we did make a medicinal mixture with them. Corey did last year. It's supposed to be like a natural antibiotic. And when we all had a cold, we took it, me and Corey especially, we took it. And I do think that it helped. There's a little ant on that one with getting some water. We do think it helped. It has the most bitter, vile taste of anything you've ever tasted, though. I will tell you that. I love how the water beads up on them like that. That, again, is one of my favorite things. I just love that. I'll let you go, little ant. On this other side of the door, things are just booming. As you can see, the nasturtium has got really big. The thyme is really big. The mint is big. A lot of this needs to be cut back. I did cut back the calendula because after the last week or so of being at Miss Cindy's, it had just completely fell over into the walkway there and was just about to pull it out by the roots. So I cut it back, but I need to do some more cutting back here and rearranging to make sure that it's all getting enough sunshine. Beautiful, though. Beautiful plants. This part of the garden is really kind of a jungle. We've got the tomatoes alongside the greenhouse, got the tomatoes over there, and then the Malabar spinach is beginning to climb up the trellis. Right here, I've got some lamb's quarters that a dear friend sent me the seeds of so that I would have it. I need to be harvesting some of it and eating it, and I hope that I can tell when it has seeds so that I can spread it around and have it growing in other places. But it's really doing good. You can see our potatoes, not tomatoes, potatoes are beginning to die back. So there are probably some new potatoes down there I hope we're going to eat in the next week or so. And again, nasturtiums are just everywhere. I poked them in the ground everywhere I could just because I love their blooms, and I just think they add so much beautiful color to the garden. I'm really excited to see the Malabar spinach going up the arch there. because I love it. I love to eat it. It's really tasty raw, I think it is. It does have a mouthfeel that some people don't like, and I love it cooked. It's wonderful, like cooked any way you would regular spinach, as greens, sauteed, creamed spinach. We love it that way. That's probably our favorite, or Matt's favorite. But I also love to see it because Miss Cindy loved it so much. She just marveled over it. When we first started growing it, probably 3 or 4 years ago now, she just was amazed. And she loved greens like I do, so she loved, like I did, was just amazed that we could have them all summer long, because the heat does not bother it. It just continues to go through, where other greens don't do as well when it gets really hot and humid. It just thrives on that. So she was so amazed with it, and so it kind of brightens my heart to see it, that it's starting to climb up, because it makes me think of her, and it always will, I'm sure. In this other part of the bed here, you can see this is where our all of our Cherokee purples are supposed to be, but somehow Corey and I got some of the cups mixed up, or we planted the wrong seeds, or we done something. So some of them are not Cherokee purples, and Matt is really distressed about that. But hopefully the ones that are Cherokee purples, they're just hanging full of tomatoes, so hopefully he'll still have plenty. But you can kind of tell the ones that are like on the end there that are really tall, and some of those on the other side, you can tell those are more the tomato growth habit, so that's where the ones are. We somehow mixed up the blueberry ones in here, and then also, I don't know if one of them is going to be one of the other tomatoes we planted. I don't think it's the David and Carolines, or it'd already be ripe, because we planted those at the same time. Now, someone did tell me, maybe the seed company got them mixed up. Well, that could definitely happen, but since it's the other ones that we planted, I think it's probably us. And then another person said, if you saved the seeds, they could cross-pollinate. That definitely happens with tomatoes, especially the big varieties of tomatoes. But these were all seeds that we bought, so I think it's me and Corey. Now, Matt tries to say it's because we've been drinking. He's only teasing because he knows we don't drink. But he's had a lot of fun teasing us about that we've been into the moonshine, or the recipe as they called it on the Waltons, but that definitely was not the case. We were more likely talking and not paying attention to what we were doing is probably what happened. One thing I'm really excited about this year is I think I'm going to have elderberries for the first time. Way up there you can see there's the bloom. So we planted these elderberries last year, but this looks like it's going to be the first year that we actually have some of the berries. And I'm excited about it because I want to make our own, ooh, aren't they pretty? Make our own elderberry syrup. Robbie Lynn Howe, she shared some of hers with us, and it was so good. And I do really think it helps when you're sick. Helps prevent sickness too, but especially when you first get sick. Miss Cindy taught me about elderberry many, many years ago. And so we're a family that took it, but we've always took supplements. So when we get sick, or during cold and flu season or whatever, we would take elderberry just with the supplements though. So it'd be really rewarding to be able to harvest our own and actually make it like Robbie Lynn does. So I'm really excited about those. I can't wait to see them. Another thing growing right behind it is a great old big poke plant. So that's a great old big one growing there. We usually do have them in this area of the yard. And a lot of people ask me, I also see some blackberries down there, not ripe yet, but I see them. Oh, I see a ripe one right over here I'll have to go get. A lot of people ask me about poke. Now, I never grew up eating poke salad. It was something that Pap didn't like. He said he would never eat it again unless he had to, like when he was a boy. So Granny never made it. Granny's family really liked it though, and then I had some friends who really liked it. So I have tasted it, but maybe I didn't taste whoever made it. Maybe they didn't make it exactly right, but I was like Pap. I wasn't a huge fan of it. But there are lots of people in our area that love it. Now, what I would like to do, and I should remember this next spring, is to get the very first shoots, and instead of boiling up the greens and dipping out the water and doing all that you got to do, is just to cut those very first shoots, kind of like the hostas that we harvest, and just roll them in meal and fry them. I need to try that and see if I like that better. But that is a huge plant for sure. When I think about this area of the garden though, this is just one of my this is part of my excitement I'm excited about all of it. But here I planted the elderberry, and I know they grow wild here. Jim Cassida said, "Why, Tipper, you ought to just go find one." I said, well, I've not been able to do that. By the time I knew about elderberries growing wild everywhere, Pap was too feeble or felt too bad to go traipse through the woods with me and find them. And anyway, I just ended up buying them. But so there's that one that I planted. But then here's the poke that lots of people enjoy every year, rite of spring, passage of spring. And then the blackberries, you know, that are just wild blackberries, all right here together growing. I just love that. It just makes my heart sing. Katie's still up there working on her bed. This is our asparagus bed here. It's all gone to seed now, and this is what comes after the asparagus. It's a beautiful plant. And I even read recently, or somebody told me recently, that folks used to grow it just for ornamental. Isn't that pretty? Anyway, so that's gone till next spring. But you can see, you're like, well, what's all that other stuff? Those are all volunteers. There's a volunteer tomato there, and this giant volunteer, you know, I don't know for sure what it is. Looks like right there's one. That looks like a butternut. It's going to be a butternut. There's one on the other side, though, that looks more like a pumpkin, so there may be two of them. Then I did plant some sunflowers in that end, so hopefully I'll have some sunflowers here in a little bit. But lots of goodness in here, even though there's one stray asparagus stalk that nobody didn't get. And then the tomato here, I don't see any. I see lots of blooms, but I don't see any tomatoes yet. It's probably going to be a Tommy Totu, though, if I had to guess. This is one of my favorite views of the garden. I love, especially it's morning and you can see the kind of the fog lifting and the sun shining. This is just beautiful. I think it's beautiful. I just love it, except for my dead tomatoes down there, but I can kind of overlook them by looking at the beans. But in this bed right here closest to us, we have asparagus that's gone to seed on that side, and then a stand of potatoes that was just beautiful. So I can't wait to dig in there and see how they actually produced. And you can see they're dying back, so it's time for us to do that. And then you can look down the length of the garden and back into the shadows there where the sun's not hitting yet. It's just a lovely, lovely sight. It makes me very happy. This is one of our blueberry bushes that's here by the steps. It's just loaded with berries this year. And in fact, I move over here, I see some that's ripe. I'm gonna have to have one of them. Here's another one. My favorite fruits are blueberries and watermelon. I can grow blueberries, watermelon not so much. Down here in the same area with the death of the tomatoes is another death. This is a little peach tree that we planted, and it did have leaves on it. You can see they've all fallen off, but it is dead. And I think whatever, it's like the kind of thing that bores in and kills it from the inside, because I seen a bunch of jelly stuff coming out of there. And then shortly after that, all the leaves fell off of it. So it is dead. And this was not a good place to put a peach tree anyway. But we're just so short on room. And I'm so full on want to grow this, want to grow that I should have known better to even put one here. So probably can put another blueberry bush maybe. But the peach tree, it just needs to be pulled up and discarded. Another thing we're full of this year with those blueberries is grapes. This vine is just covered in grapes. So we're going to have plenty to eat, plenty for grape jelly, plenty for grape juice. It's just bountiful growing. This is a purple grape, so they're not ripe yet, but they will be before we know it, as fast as time goes by. This is the mansion vine up here on this end, and it's got a lot of grapes on it too. But down in the bottom of the bed this is another mess that needs to be cleaned out. You can see the blackberries are taking over. And I had two new grapevines here, the Scuppernong grapes. One of them had leaves on it. All the leaves are gone. I'm thinking it's dead. And then that one down there still looks pretty good, although a blackberry's competing with it and it needs to be removed. But a lot of people told me, I did not know, that the same thing can happen with grapes. So these will probably intermingle and change. And the person that said that said likely what would happen is the scoopernong would take over the other two and change them, kind of cross-pollinate with them, which if that happens, I would be thrilled because that was my favorite. But I didn't know that they would do that when I planted them so close together. So it'll definitely be an experiment. We'll just have to see what happens. Now for the rows of sadness. Some of the tomatoes still look okay down here, but there's just the ones, especially these right here, you can see that they're just dead. They've just died. The whole plant's died. It does have lots of tomatoes on it, but the plant is just shriveled up and dead, unfortunately. The ones further, and I need to remove it because if it is the blight, whatever's wrong with it will soon be wrong with the rest of them. But the ones down through here still look pretty good. This one looks like it's doing the same thing, but there's probably going to be our first ripe tomatoes are going to be right there. And those are Mountain Princess tomatoes. And they usually do so good for us. So I don't know what's happened out through here. As you go that way, the plants look better. But definitely something like probably priority number one that Matt and I need to take care of is to discard these plants. This part of the garden is doing really good. It's like a magical part. It's all magical to me, but I love the bean patch when it's full and kind of forms a wall around you, and you can see up here the beans are reaching tall enough to where they're going to start, as Kenneth Roper would say, holding hands across the aisle, and you get inside there and you're picking beans. It's just magical, and you can hear the hum of bees and the call of the birds from place to place. It's just a beautiful place to be. Bean patch and a cornfield, those are magical. I used to love to go with Pap and go into the dark corn rows and pick corn with him, and you'd see the beautiful morning glories and hear the bees buzzing. It's just beautiful, beautiful time. So this part is doing really good though. I've not seen any bean bugs yet. I'm sure they will appear like they always do. And we use to control any kind of insect. We like neem oil and we like diatomaceous earth, which both are all natural. You don't have to worry about poison or anything like that. The neem oil, you do have to be careful. You want to use it in the later, either really, really early, but I think the late part of the day is better, and that way it has overnight to kind of sit there, because if you used it during the heat of the day and the sun shining against it, it could like burn your plants up, so you got to be careful with that. But all of it comes with directions on how to do it. One thing I want to try this year, someone left a comment, thank you, said that someone in their family taught them to use flour, just regular flour like you would cook with, and to sprinkle that on plants. Bugs don't like it, but then you would have to, they can't digest it or whatever it is, but then you wouldn't have to worry about poison. So I may try that some this year too, just to see if that works. And then last year we did try lime. We put lime, and that did seem to help some. So the bean bug is about the only insect damage that we really usually have. Last year, I did have some squash bugs in my cucumbers, not in the squash. So with those, I pick off as many as I can and kill them, look for the eggs and get rid of them, and also do the diatomaceous earth. They don't like that. But I'm going to try the flour, so I'll let you know how that works. So as we look down this part of the garden, you can see our row of okra down through there. We're going to have a lot of okra, but we love it. We freeze it. We share it with Granny. We eat it. We're just crazy about it. Our cabbage is growing inside there. Need to probably open it up and take a peek at it, but we've not done that yet. And then you can see the beans. They're just looking lovely. Just went over and pulled up some carrots. I managed to grow carrots for 2 years in a row. I'm so excited. This is the first time I've even checked on my carrots, so I definitely have carrots. I'm really excited about it. That's wonderful. Very encouraging and wonderful. Over there where the carrots are at is where our bush beans are, and most of those are the Yance bean. It's a bean that our friend Brian Lambert shared with us many, many years ago, and it was passed down through his family for well over 100 years. And it's a great old big bean. I really love it. And You can eat it, you could use it as a dried bean, I'm sure, but we use it as a green bean, and it's really good, and it's really like meaty almost. It makes its own broth when it cooks. It's just really a great bean. We've about lost all of our seeds, so we've shared with other people and just eat the bean and not saved any seeds. So this year, what we're growing, we're going to save it all as seed so that we'll have it. Now another one we have over there, just a little short row, is one that Debbie shared with us from Bryson Farm Supply. So I'm excited to try it, and I can't help but wonder if it's going to be very similar to the Yance bean. A lot of times things like that happen, especially, you know, in a generalized area. Think of western North Carolina. So several people, several families are saving that seed, but they call it something else. Now, Brian's great uncle, Alvin, he told me that when he was a boy, they called it the young prince, the bean. But where they're from, Junaluska area of Cherokee County, North Carolina, not out in Haywood, but in Cherokee County, is not very far from Cherokee, where the bean that Debbie shared with me, where it comes. So I'll be interested to see if they're kind of the same bean. And one of the beans that she shared with us called preacher bean, a lot of people told us that they expected that's going to be very, very similar to, but if not the same thing as rattlesnake bean. And so far they are kind of growing right together. So we'll have to see. It's so interesting to find those old seeds, but I think that does happen a lot of times if it's in the same general area. It's folks calling it different names, but really growing the same seed. One other thing that's over there with the beans and the carrots is a lot of weeds. That's kind of my biggest area of flowers, and it's not been weeded one time this spring. So it's got, Matt found a tree growing in it. It's got some, I saw yesterday, some Joe Pye weed or Queen of the Meadow growing right in the middle of it. So it definitely needs to be cleaned out, and we'll get to that in time, I'm sure. But you can still see some pretty flowers growing over there. There's some daylilies and some gladolias about to bloom and different things. So there are still some flowers just growing up through all the weeds. Listening to the birds. A lot of people ask me what they are. I don't know. I just know they're the sounds of my life, sounds of my childhood and my growing up years. And I don't know what all the birds are, but I love to hear them. I especially love it. Hear that one and one answering it back over there. I love that. Sometimes I hear one down at Granny's and I think one up here is answering it. Beautiful, beautiful soundtrack to my life. In this part of the garden is where we have all of our squash and our zucchini. Again, I was so impressed with Corey's squash plants are that big. Mine are still just about this big. Maybe it's because of the lack of sunshine and the cool weather that we've had. She don't live that far from me though, so I know I'm just telling myself that's the difference. But they're coming along though. They're getting bigger day by day. We have our some onions down here that are doing great. And then all of our winter squash is in this part, since the squirrel pulled up what I had back there. Well, except the volunteer, I forget about it, that's in the asparagus bed, so I have to wait and see what that is. But the winter squash does look really good down here. Nothing's bothered it, and it's growing well. Katie interrupted my garden tour. She wanted to know if I would come look and see if I thought her bed was deep enough. Don't it look great? I'm so impressed. How about you build about 5 more of them?
I could, I guess. I said this was bugging me. I wanted to put something there. That might stay. Let's see if that'll
Looks great. I think it's definitely deep enough.
Took a lot of fuss and a lot of pains with it.
That's beautiful. Yeah, why don't you just keep on going, girl?
Stack it up.
Yeah. Job well done, I would say.
Yay, thanks, Mom.
So this is the places where we planted watermelon down here. You can see there's one. That was the patrimoine. I don't know, I'm sure I'm not saying that right. First time I'm trying to grow it. Well, I think I might have planted it last year, but it was so late in the season it didn't come up. And only one mound of it has come up, but you can see how small it is. Then I planted some moon and stars in these, and you can see there's one little plant. No plant in that one. And then these are the sugar babies. Here's this plant. So you can see, and there's about the same size one in that one. You can see why I was saying those up there look so much better and so much healthier. You see a lot of ground cherries. That's ground cherries coming up around these. I'll have to pull some of those up or they'll just take over. So the winter squash is all doing good, but the largest plants is candy roaster, which is, they do get huge. So surely I'll have some candy roasters this year. I don't think I grew one last year. Back there behind them is some Long Island cheese pumpkins, 2 of those. And I tried to grow those last year and just didn't do no good. So I hope they make and I can taste those for the first time. Down here at the bottom, in the front, here's another example of the seeds like I was talking about, maybe being the same. Here in the front, you can notice the markings on the leaves of these. Aren't they pretty? These are Chambers Creek pumpkins, Chambers Creek, and that's from Swain County. And then those in the back look just alike. They look just like them. Those are cow pumpkin. A cow pumpkin seed is what Debbie called it, from Debbie at Bryson Farm Supply. So since that's in the same general area, you know, where she kind of collected seeds, and then of course close to Swain County, I'm betting that that pumpkin will be similar, if not the exact same thing as the Chambers Creek pumpkin. And it's my favorite pumpkin. It's like a tan color, a brown color more than orange, and it's firm, it tastes good, it does well for me. It's all those things. And Don Cassida shared the Chambers Creek seed with me many years ago, and we grow it every year. It's just our favorite pumpkin. But I'm betting the cow pumpkin's going to be the same thing. The flower bed in front of my kitchen windows just been beautiful this year too, mostly because of the flowers we got from Satterfield's nursery. All of the petunias and the daisies and the other things, they've just done so well. Of course, I've got nasturtiums planted up here too, and my hostas, and that dianthus is from the Satterfields too. But one thing that has again took over is my September charm back there. You can see it. Now Katie's got some of her poppies in here too. I've got some calendula that I hope will continue to grow. Here's one of her poppies though. Some of them, because we've had so much rain in the last week, they just got so heavy they just kind of fell over. And that orange poppy is through blooming. Here's a pretty little plant that I can't remember if that one come from the Satterfields or not. Here's a zinnia about to bloom. I had a lot of zinnias planted in here. There's some in the back, but that anemone just has took over. I'm gonna have to just get in here and be ruthless and pull it out. I can always put it on the bank now though. And the daylily from up the creek is still blooming. And so many people told me they called them tiger lilies. So I like that. What we call tiger lily is a different, more of an oriental type lily, but it definitely fits this too. Just below the squash is another jungle that we need to work on. You can see the weeds, but this is our blueberries that we cut back. We really cut them back during the winter, and some of them have no berries. That one over there is loaded down though. Some of those back there don't have any, but what happened when we did cut them back is what we were wanting to happen was new shoots come up from the ground, lots of new shoots. So we probably this coming winter will take down some of those tall ones, just completely take it down now that we've got new ones growing underneath. And I have a few different varieties, and I don't know the names of them. People have, almost all my blueberries, ones that folks have given me over the years, but you can see these are turning ripe. They'll be ripe way quicker than those in the back, or ones that don't get ripe typically till late July or August. Yesterday I had to go down at Granny's and borrow something, and on the way down there I noticed I do have a few ripe ones already right here on this one. It's a different variety, so I took her a handful. She said, "Is that blueberries from my bushes?" I said, "No, they're from mine." But she was happy to get them. In my garden tour over here in the shade by the wood pile, I used to have a huge flower bed right here. Over time, I just let it go and quit worrying about it. I told Corey the other day that she needed to come down here and see if there was any daylilies or anything that still was alive and dig them up and take them home with her. I see some hostas. There's plenty of daffodils there in the spring that still bloom. But there's at least some irises, and I'm sure there's daylilies there too. She needs to take them all home. That's the thing with gardening. If you're a gardener, or even if you just care for your lawn, maybe you're not growing food, if you're growing flowers or whatever, the landscape changes. I think of all the things that's changed in Wilson Holler since I was a girl. Many more houses that were here that are gone. People, of course, that were here that are gone. I don't know, there's some kind of symbolism there between that and the landscape and the people gone, and then the, you know, even the nature of a garden is that every spring you start out with the hope and the anticipation, and by the end of summer you're kind of wishing it'd all go away, go back for a while, because you're tired of harvesting, tired of taking care of it, and tired of all that bounty. It's amazing that we can get tired of bounty, but we do sometimes. But there's something symbolic about that, and thinking of the death of the dying of each season and the new birth of spring. Appalachia, southern Appalachia for sure, is a wonderful place to see that every year. Everything dies back in the winter. Not the evergreens, of course there's stuff, the hollies and the of course pine trees and ivies and laurels, they all stay there, but so much dies back completely, especially in the garden, just gone. All my lush hostas gone till next year, and then they come back, you know. Kind of, for a believer like me, thinking of losing Miss Cindy and even the people here in Wilson Holler that are gone, makes me, you know, hard to say without tearing up, but makes me think of the day that I'll see them again, of that new birth, of my own new birth. So, lots of deep things in the mind of a gardener. Of course, there's the wonder of a plant growing from a seed to a seedling and nurturing it till you put it out into the garden, or if it's like one of the winter squash where you just watch it and hope the squirrels or the birds don't get it, hope it flourishes, watch the first bloom and be amazed that it turns into, whether it's a tomato or a squash or a okra or whatever. This morning on the Blind Pig and the Acorn, I used every once in a while I pull something from the archives and use it, because I've got such an archive there. It's been writing since 2008. And it was something I'd wrote about paths living in Appalachia and in other places. There's paths everywhere, even in the cities, you know. People take shortcuts and paths get created in the grass. But especially in my mountain holler, there's always been paths leading back and forth to different people's houses. And that's what I was talking about, and I was showing in the picture a path that it kind of led from our driveway about middle ways down to the big garden on out to Steve's house, but it actually starts at Pap and Granny's back door. And, you know, thinking of all the feet and how precious those paths are, that the wealth that means, that our family loves each other enough to walk to each other's houses enough to create a path. You know, that's what I was writing about many, many years ago, back in 2016 when Pap died. And Miss Cindy left a comment on it and talked about the past, so I shared that comment. I figured she had, and talking about how that was just something to ponder. But in it, the picture that I'd used was one of Pap in the garden, and it was a day I remember we were going to till the garden, and we was getting the tillers out and realized that they were tore up. It was unbelievable. It was like something had cut some of the wires off of them, and couldn't believe what was, you know, what we were, all of us trying to figure out what could have happened, who would have bothered them. And, you know, I'm like looking in the woods thinking, who's here that would do something like this? From the very beginning, Paul said he thought it was a dog, and me and Pap said no dog could do that. It couldn't have been a dog. Well, it turned out it was a dog. It was Molly, Stephen Kim's dog, Molly. She's gone now. But anyway, in the picture that I used was Pap with the tiller, but also you could see behind him the trail or the path that leads down there. And Miss Cindy remarked about that, but she also said the other path that she noticed was the path that Pap, growing food for his family, and in the background, in the distance, in the background you could see girls, and that they were learning that from him. They were learning that path of growing food for their family. So it seems really, people say it's a God wink or something, but it seems really meaningful to me that today I was going to do this garden video, and I didn't even mean to talk about all this, but here it is. And that's what's on the Blind Pig and the Acorn, and that's what Katie's doing. She's up there making her a garden. So Miss Cindy was right. They learned from Pap. They learned from me, of course, and Matt. And they learned from Miss Cindy lots. Maybe not about gardening, but about other stuff. But those paths, you know, Miss Cindy noticed that, and here today, Katie's fulfilling that one for sure. She's went and pulled all those rocks out of the creek and brought them up here, and She's crazy about the poppies, so she's doing it mainly for them, but she's also gonna maybe put some onions in there. And so it's wonderful to think about those paths, and it's wonderful to think about the symbolism that you can find in a garden. I hope you've enjoyed this garden tour. I hope by the next one I'll have some ripe tomatoes, big tomatoes, not just Tommy Toes. I don't even think I showed you any Tommy Toes. And another thing I didn't show you, and I forgot the last time, is garlic. People said, why don't you grow garlic? We do, and I don't know, I forgot it again. I guess garlic's just, because it's kind of there, because you planted it, you know, last year, I'm just kind of not thinking about it. We plant garlic like that in the fall of the year, let it, you know, overwinter and come up. But we also have several big patches of garlic that we just leave. It's just there. It's kind of like an ornamental. I think of it like a safety net. It's ornamental. There's some right behind the camera blooming now. So it's pretty, but then it's just there if I need it. If I need to pull it up and spread it out and grow it. And sometimes every so many years we will pull it up and harvest it, but a lot of times we just leave it there. Now that other that we plant, we typically pull it up and harvest it. Anyway, so many things about the garden that are wonderful, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope by the next time, like I said, I have those tomatoes, I have some squash maybe. Maybe I'll have that cow pumpkin and the Chambers pumpkin growing, and you can help me determine if they're the same one, if the beans are the same. As always, I'm glad you stopped by to help me celebrate Appalachia, which is a whole lot about making a garden and about family.